The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on December 31st, 2024.
It's time now for Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now, here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Toonpop. Good morning, Pam. Happy New Year, Pam.
Happy New Year, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a nice, rainy, drizzly morning. So that's all we need is some rain on the ground before the fireworks hit.
Oh, yes, thank goodness. It was raining up in Pukalani last night on and off, and a little bit quieter night, which was good. But it's still, bombs are already going off. So
Yes.
I'm already freaking out. And so it's been an interesting few nights, but thank goodness it'll be wet when New Year's comes.
Exactly. That's what I like. Oh.
Me too. Well, I just want to thank you, Gary, for all that you do for our show and for our community at KAOI and the station. We're so grateful for our partnership, and we love having you produce the show for us each week.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to thank you. I'll tell you something, Pam. I've learned so much throughout the years, actually, that you've done the show, because it's hard to keep track of everything. And you do an amazing job. And I think now more than ever, with the changes that are going on, that really everyone needs to understand what's happening. And it's very hard to keep track of everything.
It really is. It really is. And for everybody listening, and if you don't recognize that voice, it is the one and only Cindy Paulos.
Yes.
Have you been
35?
35
Well, no,
years
actually
in
longer.
radio.
35 years on
Tell
Maui.
everybody where your other station is.
Yeah, no, 35 years on Maui. Before that, I was doing L.A. and other places in Sonoma County. And,
Yeah.
and I still have a station in other place, Sedona, which I do as well. But, I have to say, I learned so very much from you, because there is a lot going on. And when you get to the point that we are in a crisis point, of course, that we've still been in, and it hasn't gone away and it hasn't changed since the fires, that everyone has to have a deeper understanding of how to navigate these kind of tricky waters. And you've seen it can be a matter of survival for businesses, life and death, right? To survive what's happening.
Yes, and we've had crises before the wildfires that are impacting us even more, like housing.
Mm-hmm.
And the correlation between keeping workers, you have to be able to house workers. People have to be able to afford to live here.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a very interesting year as we move to navigating forward in this time. A lot of people have just felt, while there's been tremendous recovery effort, they just feel like we have been, in many ways, a little bit slow, trying to catch up, trying to look at new systems. And we've had some really systems that have been broken for decades. And now is the time where we need to really strongly revisit this. Without housing, with a strong Maui County having a very strong over-reliance on the visitor industry, we don't have, all of the businesses. We have all of the businesses that are on Oahu, but we don't have the size and scale, the diversity in our economic community. We don't have a military base here like other neighbor islands. So there's a lot of things that we need to look at to both insulate ourselves from a downturn in the visitor industry and economy as a result of that. And then we also have to look at how we sustainably plan forward. And of course, on everybody's mind is, our Lahaina recovery.
Yes.
And I can say that I think even, statewide, while we all knew that Lahaina was not only a treasured cultural crown jewel, it was also an economic engine that really impacted the entire state after the wildfires. And it's going to take time to recover and rebuild from. So but we've got many families out there counting on us, and time that we need to start expeditiously moving forward. We're glad to see people moving back into homes. there are so many solutions that are still on the table, but have been on the table from the beginning of the wildfires. And then there's so many solutions that have been on the table for decades, like improving our housing. We've done 2 summits prior to all of this, and we have answers. We just need to start expediting processes and changing processes that no longer work.
Well, and there was some, everyone's going through the year in review, and there were some very interesting observations nationally about what was going on with all the states. And I was shocked to see how the whole state of Hawaii and Maui in particular was actually one of the worst in recoveries and the most amount of damage done economically. And, when you see it like that, compared to the rest of the world, the rest of the whole United States, and how we're still going through this, you and I know there was a lot of kind of trying to soar up and get people through the crisis through giving money, and you've seen the money that has come in. A lot of that's going to run out, right? So then what happens is the question. What then supports the people that are no longer going to get that money that has been keeping them going?
Yeah, and the thing that keeps us going, right, is stimulating industry. The money that comes in from taxes from industry is what helps support our community when we don't see large giving. I think in some ways we heard a lot. There was a lot of giving that came in, a tremendous amount of giving. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Again, primarily to Health and Human Services, which is the first thing you need to address. But in the end, there have been so many hiccups on getting businesses support, challenges with people not well informed about some of the SBA processes, people not understanding the SBA processes. Many of our ethnic groups didn't really get to participate because the process was so arduous. We worked tirelessly to try and help businesses get loans through the SBA, finding challenges in the portal or a tightening of lending after abuse from COVID of unscrupulous businesses who claimed things that weren't true. So sort of they tightened the process. We had so many applications locked in the portal. So there were so many things that occurred while money was coming in for Health and Human Services, and a lot of programs started up, a lot of nonprofits starting up, a lot of money coming into different people. And a lot of it, is going to be something that we're going to really have to look at as well, in terms of, I get calls all the time about people who, this influencer, that influencer who raised money, and people were saying, well, they got, millions. What happened to that money?
Yeah.
So we also are going to be at a time where people are asking a lot of questions that are valid questions to ask. As a nonprofit, you're supposed to disclose everything from, your administrative percentage on to how you spent the money.
Yeah.
And donors are entitled to know, is the money going to the purpose they intended it to go to? So there's going to be a lot of information coming out on that. But sadly, not the level of business support that we had hoped. We had hoped to see more business grants. And so, there's a lot of effort in that we're trying to work on now to really help businesses recover, and still working with the SBAs and new administration. So that changes all of our partnership at the key level. The director of the SBA is changing. The key deputy directors are changing. So it's a difficult time for Hawaii. And we've heard on the news, a lot of the nonprofits are worried about funding to Hawaii. So it's going to be an interesting time that we have to navigate, and we have to focus on priorities, and we have to focus on broken systems. And, Hawaii has historically been one of those states that is the worst in the nation, particularly for small businesses, but for all businesses. It's our high regulatory environment, it's our tax structure, it's, of course, our higher cost of living to live in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And a lot of people keep trying to put that on businesses. But really, it's broken structures, and we need to look at new ways and economical ways to sustain our economy, and we have to diversify So we're going to have to make investments in that, but it's going to be a very tough time when we're so far down in revenues and we've got so many challenges to fix. This is the time when we really need to educate people on the correlation between things.
Well, I would have to wonder, and you are there with your finger on the pulse of what's going on in business more than anyone else I know. In the past, we'd see new businesses come in, and there'd be people coming, everyone would want to come to Maui. New businesses would come in, you'd help them get started. It seems like instead of that, and I really haven't heard about new businesses much coming in, but you've certainly seen some success stories. I'm kind of curious what you saw and how people you worked with were able to weather the storm and really create and start new businesses in these times. And there were people that had old businesses. A couple of them had their places destroyed by fire, and they started in another area. Now, I'm sure you've seen some of that. What was the difference in those attitudes versus the ones that just were paralyzed?
Well, a lot of it depends on the type of loss on many levels, right? We have so many people devastated by the wildfires, and it devastated not only their business, it might have also taken their home. It might have taken family members from them. It might have taken pets. There were so many just hugely traumatic things, and people had to put first things first. Obviously, family and health was first. And so, they depended on different levels of trauma. There were really tough stories. I think one of the stories that, there's just so many impressive stories of how people could have, but I guess I don't want to single one person out, but there were stories of, we had so many people, especially with the Mid-Maui County Festival, November after the August wildfires. So many had lost, all of their stores on Front Street, all of their products, the building. They might have also lost their house. Some of them had family members, and some of them just, were able to pivot. Some of that is some of their financial resiliency. Some of them were their mental resiliency, where they were able to say, okay, we can't fix this at the moment, but we need to start anew to sustain our family. And that was really tough. I don't want to make it sound like, some people had, it was a will, but they were able to look at the situation and begin to say, okay, what are the avenues? And others were still working on their business, but they couldn't get ready in time for the festival, but they wanted the festival to go on. Yeah. Others got family and friends together and started, making product again and did everything possible to gear up for the festival. And I'm talking about last year's festival after the wildfires. We saw businesses frantically looking for commercial space to move the inventory that they had available and start again in new places. So people had to move. They moved to Kihei, they moved to Paia, they moved to Makawao, and really it was an extraordinary time. Some of them got some insurance help and some of their, money that they've gotten from FEMA to assist. But the big overarching thing, and the problem with that was then the rents were going up, of course, exponentially, because there was a limited market and there was a huge demand. So that was the problem, because people then had to pay huge amounts for rent. For folks in Lahaina, they were used to paying large rent because of the location in Lahaina. So moving to, other areas across the island, was not as much of a hardship. But then leases that were up, that were at a lower rate, were converted over to a much higher rate given the demand in the market.
Yep.
So it was a very challenging time. One of the stories from a restaurant that closed down was she started doing, she also had farms. And on her farm, she started doing dinners and cooking and selling vegetable boxes and, using her produce in a different way. which was an amazing pivot, and those phenomenal dinners up country that people can go to. And so she started, people had to think out of the box.
Yeah.
Many moved. We had other restaurants who went into food truck businesses. People were doing some delivery. We had alliances formed where, somebody who was struggling with their business and didn't have enough workers, people were, taking workers between businesses and leveraging help and giving people additional hours who wanted additional hours. And I think one of the key things I really want to point out is, the visitor industry and our hoteliers in resorts really did an amazing job in West Maui of taking everybody in. And that is unique because Tina had never seen that before, right? We had these hotel rooms and in the area, not far from where the burns were, and they took everybody in and they cared for people. And, they had, different programs at different properties, but they wanted people to feel at home as best they could. Some allowed pets, others could not. But, that the way that we were able to quickly respond with the hotels was really tremendous and amazing. And I know that I just feel like they often don't get enough credit because they also had to completely renovate rooms that, the rooms weren't meant to hold as many people as some of them did. I mean, there was so much going on, but they really worked hard to sustain our community. And we've had, hiccups with, placement of people in condos and other areas where it escalated our rents, and we've had huge challenges.
Yeah.
But we've learned from all of these things. FEMA's learned from all of these things. And businesses are still working hard to pivot. In the beginning, nobody wanted loans because they already had COVID loans. But more and more are able to take loans. We were able to get an extension, which I'm told after the deadline passed was never done, but we did it.
Yeah.
And I fought for it. And even now, people can still apply for EIDL loans, the economic injury disaster loan. They do at this point for some reason. We have to extend it again, but again, it was an anomaly the first time. So, but if you still have the hardship, you can still apply. They just have you write a letter, and it doesn't have to be a long letter. It can just be, we weren't ready at that time, and we're getting to that point because a lot of people are getting to that point. And the EIDL loan, even if you don't want it right now, it's a great thing to apply for. Because first you have 6 months after you get the offer. Now, we all heard they ran out of money, but money's been reauthorized. And so then we have to thank Senator Schatz for that and our congressional team. But he had really worked hard on that. And we just need people to understand that if your business is suffering, you can still apply for the EIDL loan. And even if you don't want to take it, if you get the award, you have 6 months to think about it. And if you decline it, then you decline it. You don't have to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to get the award. Okay, so then you have that money. And then once you accept that, you've got 12 months of interest-free payment. So then, if you accept it, you have all that money in your bank. And you have 12 months of interest-free payment. So you can pay it off before the end of the 12 months and have been able to have that money in your bank. You have the flexibility. It takes the stress off to many people. And I've really been adamant about looking at it like an insurance policy. Because, if you need the money, then you can tap into it. If you don't have to. It is 4% interest. I know everybody thought we would see more loans and more grants, and not loans, more grants. In the business arena, and we really haven't. It's been an interesting struggle, of course, with the huge humanitarian relief. In some ways, understandably so, but in other ways, people have said, "How can I take on more debt?" And then yet we learned in Florida that places like Florida, some people have 4 and 5 EIDL loans, and the work with the SBA to help manage it. The SBA is very flexible to work with businesses, but it takes some work. And many people actually lost out on loans because they didn't have the time to go check back into their portal. And again, understandably so, there was so much people were dealing with. So we've been working with the SBA to help people resurrect those loans and the application process to get back into what is it they need to get the loan to help take the stress off. Others have just been not ready to continue on with their business. Some people have just said, have to look at that later. I talked to somebody the other day who got a full-time job because everybody's looking for workers and said, with the losses we experienced during COVID, and this wasn't even a company in the wildfires, but just a huge loss with the loss of all those businesses in Lahaina that sold their product.
Yeah.
A huge loss to their business. It was so devastating. They said, look, I'm going to get a full-time job for now. And at some point, we will resurrect that business. But the high cost of rent and production and employee challenges and other issues, their way of pivoting to find other full-time work. But the stories of people who have pivoted, who've had to move everything, some had to completely replace their inventory, to find workers in that time was a huge challenge. And it's been help from family and friends. It's been alliances. It's been able to say, okay, I kind of have to let what I had go for this moment and look at what I can do with my resources and how I can pivot, what I can do with my knowledge, what other opportunities I have. One of the key things that Lou did before this year's Mid-Maui County Festival is a tremendous partnership with SCORE California and Hawaii through Kat Shepard and her amazing team. And she put together a whirlwind of experts that whether you didn't have a website or were ready to maximize your website, it was a 6-week program. Week 1 was kind of the down and dirty on here is a quick and easy tool. Here are how you can find things at very low to no cost. To help build your business. Here's how you can use the resources of SCORE, which is the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. Many people are still in the workplace serving, but these are people who serve and do consulting for free to help businesses pivot. And in our 6-week course, we taught people how to, if you had a website, we taught you tips and tricks to, 2x or 3x your income. In other cases, we taught people how to get started and ramp up really quickly. And then you still got the tools. That's how to maximize your income. So you were starting up with expert learning from day one. But everybody who participated in that class said, and we had cohorts from Hawaii and California who participated, who was technical and university experts. And everybody who participated learned so much in the class. But it was those kinds of pivots. And it was an investment in time. So we're going to do it again, but we also, for those who participated or signed up the first time, they got the videos of the program. They can check back in. We're hoping to, it was done very quickly. So, we don't have all the rights to all the material to share it broadly, but we're working on how we can do that and continue to help with that. But it's having to be, we have to remember that people need help pivoting and we can be there to help them pivot.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. And what we do, somebody said, it's so funny because so many times, and I've just changed my answer, people would ask, what does the chamber do? And, how can you help me? And my response is always, what do you need help with? Because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We find solutions to challenges that businesses face. And whatever the challenges are, whether something is stuck in permitting and we still have to fix the permitting process, but whether something is stuck in permitting or whether you need a certain type of consulting or, you're having employee challenges and you need help with figuring some of that out. What we do is what people need help with. We help people solve their business challenges. And, and I always help remind the community that what we do is help people there's stigmatism for some reason in Hawaii about businesses. Like businesses are evil. We're not.
Isn't that strange? I've never understood that, Pam. I've never understood that. Why people think that. And I know because you care and you work with so many wonderful people, and there was a bit of this challenge that the island faced about resentment and anger, and everyone goes through grief in its own way. But all I can think of is you, Pam Toomba, at the Chamber of Commerce for so many years, has done so much to try to help people that really you don't even have, as you were trying to describe your job description. It's so huge because there is so much need. And the other problem I see is there's a lot of wealth of information, I'm sure, out there, but I never understood one centralized way to access what to do. And I think you probably did the best job of that. But what did you tell people? Because there was so much going on that people really didn't even sometimes know where to go to find out information.
Well, and, like COVID and with the wildfires, we would refer them to many different sources. But what we did was really customized for everybody who called. And it wasn't even, obviously we're a membership organization. We don't have the grants that we have are not grants that support our admin. The grants we have support work to help during, our economy and help business industries and those types of things. So our membership is what really helps pay our bills and keep the staff going. Mm-hmm. But of course, membership, when people can't afford to pay, we don't say we're not here to help you. Of course, we help all who call. And we really, everything's a customized situation. Of course, we advocated vehemently for, helping connect people with FEMA, helping connect people with the SBA, helping connect people with county resources, helping connect with different departments in the county, where there were issues that we could serve on. We did, whether you were a chamber member or not. Our goal was to help as many businesses as we can. There were some unusual things we did right after the wildfires. Police were trying to identify business owners. Police were trying to let people know that they found safes or vaults. We tried to help people get in early, back to their business as early as possible when things were locked down and people couldn't get in to check on their business. We were on the news reporting things, but that was very early on. And then as we moved into this year, the focus is really helping them recover from where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I will say, we did a lot of counseling, and I'm not a trained counselor, but sometimes when we talk about businesses, what we have there are business owners, there are employees. Many times the business owners aren't, sometimes we have companies on island where, it might be employees of a bank, for example, managers or employees of a bank who are struggling, and people call on solutions. The corporation's not locally owned. It can be headquartered in Honolulu. To small businesses who, we have, businesses, majority of our businesses are under 25 employees after the Great Recession and COVID. Mm-hmm. So we deal primarily, yes, we have hotels and larger corporations that are members of the chamber, and, that have ownership abroad. But the majority of businesses I work with are all local owners. Local owners are local people who have local families. They employ local people who have local families. And, just like COVID, I remember during COVID, we had, business owners calling and saying, we paid into the unemployment insurance and my employees weren't getting paid. And they would be crying and saying, how do I fix this? And I would be calling Department of Labor on their behalf, mm-hmm. and saying, enough is enough. this is getting held on it too long. And he advocated a lot for that during COVID. Well, that was happening. Now unemployment wasn't a big holdup. We didn't get a lot of complaints. But this time it was, my employees have lost their house. What can I do? How can we pivot? Where can we go? How do we get help? My employees are struggling. Let's just do that right now. I mean, so many business owners call and still continue to call. Right now they're calling because we still need housing and we still need economic recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And, and in time, we're doing less counseling. I mean, we still are always there to counsel, but it's, the realities have set in. Now it's, how can we pivot? Well, we need to unite our community in pivoting in a way that's sustainable
mm-hmm.
and that are the kinds of jobs that we want to see in our community. And we'll have to continue to support the visitor industry, who, by the way, supported us in a huge way from these wildfires. Imagine if we didn't have all of those units to put people in. I'm really surprised, how many people don't get the correlation of how helpful that was and the tremendous effort that they put in and what it would have looked like if we didn't have that immediate type of help, which was very unique. They have been an asset in our community, and people don't understand what that base contributes to make all of our cost of living lower in Maui County,
Mm-hmm.
given the tremendous amount of taxes that come in from the industry, given the amount of workers they employ still. It's something that we really need to re-educate people on as we move forward. And of course, we do want economic diversity.
Yeah.
And we do want sustainable and regenerative tourism. And we're on a great trajectory for that.
Now, can we talk about that for a second, Pam? Because we all know that there was a huge drop in tourism. I've heard figures about 30% drop this last year, and it definitely affected not just the hotel business. It affected everything. It affected people who go out to eat food. It affected a lot of things that people that support things that you can do to, there's many, many people that supply wonderful events people can go to and other exciting things. So with the lack of tourism that we did experience, the people keep hoping. And what are your figures that you're hearing? I've heard it's gotten better. I'm hearing that maybe that tourism might just be down 10%. Have you heard any figures about how tourism's going to be in the coming year?
Well, it's very interesting, and I'm glad that you asked. And first, before I answer that question, I want to say something that you just mentioned. We really leveraged the visitor industry to create many diverse industries, as you mentioned. Restaurants, retail, activities, weddings and events, which support photography and videography.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about all of the people, if you just take a moment to sit and think about, well, all of the different levels of job in restaurant, all of the different levels of jobs in retail, all of the different levels of jobs to put on weddings and events, and all of the amazing jobs and the protection that people in many of the activity businesses do to also protect our environment and to teach people about our environment and about Hawaii, as well as all the hotel workers. We did a phenomenal job. So when the visitor industry is hurting, it trickles down, not just from the hotels and the resorts and the condotels, it trickles all the way down to all of those jobs. And it's been a tremendous challenge. To be honest with you, I'd be reticent to quote what the numbers are. 30% was, yes, we were easily down 30%. So looking at, I was at back in October, I was at the HTA conference where they talked about our different markets. And of course, Japanese visitors are down. That's huge for Oahu. It's important to all neighbor islands, but it's predominantly huge for Oahu. Our Canadian visitors, who we could always count on, were down.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I keep hearing. There were two people who put out such a strong message that said, don't come, we're not ready, or you're not wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been very little to reverse that.
Yeah.
Very, very little to reverse that. And that is probably the number one complaint I hear from businesses. Not that they support sustainable and regenerative tourism, but they recognize how many jobs are tied and how our overall economy is tied and how real property tax is tied, because we have to raise the money somewhere. So if we're not, given our over-reliance, we are the most reliant island on the visitor industry in the state of Hawaii. And the impact to our people, to their job, to their mental health. I have so many people who come to me and said, and that they have mentally struggled. They've never had mental challenges before, but with the wildfires, they have mentally struggled, not only due to the wildfires, but due to not being able to go back to work, to not have the job. There are so many who just wanted to get back to work.
Yeah.
And I'm somebody who can relate to that.
You work very, very, very hard, very long hours. Yeah.
You and I are like that. Yeah. If there's times it's up or something awful happens, what do? I bury myself in my work. Right. I need to find that place for progress. And, I need to bury myself and be able to see something productive come out when I'm struggling. And that was true for many. I had a woman in my arms after a speech. I was talking on a PBN panel, and there was this sort of year of pause where we were pausing for allowing people to, just to grieve.
Yeah.
And many might have needed that, but many others shared with me they didn't need that. It was very difficult. When is the economy coming back? We are really struggling. And here's the kicker. The people I heard that from weren't business owners. The people I heard that from were people in Lahaina that were workers, and there were, we hear stories, and this was true for Hurricane Iniki. As I was sharing some of the stories I was hearing with others across the state, I was told by people from Kauai and leaders on Kauai who said, there's a thing that happens if we don't give people those avenues to work and be productive. There's a mental stress that goes with it. And, there have been reports that suicide rates were up here, and that correlated with Hurricane Iniki. I was told there was a street that they called Widow's Alley, where the men who felt incapable of being able to serve and help their family and sustain their family took their lives.
Wow.
So, there's so much of all of this that we have to recognize. There's a lot of things going on, but people are struggling, and they're working hard to pivot. We've kind of had a landslide again. When you're most dependent on the visitor industry, right? When you're the most dependent island in the state of Hawaii, and the state of Hawaii is very dependent on the visitor industry. You have to say, okay, so it started with the Great Recession, but then people rebounded. Okay, but it still took away a lot of their resources. And then we were hit with COVID, and we had complete shutdown. and businesses had to pivot during COVID and spend a lot of money during COVID to pivot, to protect people to come into their establishment, to meet certain health and safety requirements, to do whatever it took to reopen their business and keep their work family employed and their families, receiving income. And so that was a hard and huge hit. And now we've had the wildfires. And so we're having to do more pivoting with less resources coming off of those two other things. It is a time when some have lost absolutely everything. There's a lot of issues with insurance claims, but many have had money and been able to pivot. And it just takes, it just, takes a lot of support, because what we need to do is support people where they're at. And that's where we come in. We post a lot of resources. We give a lot of referrals to services. We tell people, if you're not getting the help from the services, call us back. We had to educate different agencies that came in from the federal government that people nodding their heads when you talk, when English isn't their first language, means they're being polite. It doesn't mean that they understood what you said.
Yeah.
And that they needed to bring interpreters right away into the picture. Greet them, tell them you're here to help bring an interpreter right now, so that they can understand. We're hearing a lot of folks still need help and didn't apply for that reason. That was an obstacle. So what we do is we work to help people where they're at, and we fight to overcome obstacles.
Do you find that the head of state and county, as they do their planning for the new year, and what you see is planning, we've seen still like a lot of struggling of like what money's going to come where and when the money's going to come, and then the lawsuits about what's going to happen with the money, because then they saw large groups of people and lawyers taking the money they thought might go to people. So then there were delays on that as well. I mean, that, of course, there's all that frustration that goes on with that. But we go into the new year, we want to have some hope. And you see all the services, and what does the state say? What are you seeing from the governor and the people about where we can come out of this and look forward to the new year?
Well, I think what I'm seeing right now is that, so the last legislative session was all about the wildfire. I mean, the focus was really on Maui, while they also said, well, we also have to learn from these lessons as well and look at some state protective measures. But they really understood the devastation of what had happened in Lahaina and the needs in Lahaina. You saw everybody come out in support. Even President Biden came out to Hawaii in support. And we have to thank our congressional team. Maisie Hirono, Brian Shaw, Jill Takuda, and Ed Case. They've been doing a spectacular job in D.C. And of course, the money that comes in the federal government is a tremendous help.
Yep.
Right. We really need federal funds. The challenge now is, of course, we in many states need federal funds, because after the wildfires, we saw a wave of disasters across the nation.
Yeah.
And so that's been a huge challenge. So now what we're seeing is a lot of resiliency efforts. But I do want to say, Senator Linda Clay is amazing and looking for ways. We have to sustain our businesses, and she will understand that. We have to look at economic recovery, but we have to sustain our businesses. But you're going to see a lot of, I think this year, a lot of money for overall resiliency efforts and recovery efforts. But for areas that aren't recovering like us, they're recognizing that we have to do better planning and have more, we have to have, by resiliency, I mean, we have to have better disaster planning. We have to put in better disaster preparedness systems. We, need to look at those kinds of things. I think we're going to see more streamlining of affordable housing projects, because, like the crisis is just continue to exponentially rise. We've got more homeless, and a lot of the homeless now are working homeless, because, and it's some people say, well, people aren't paid enough. Well, it really doesn't correlate with that. It correlates with the cost of housing.
Yeah.
And again, it's like saying, okay, well, if somebody is working at a local food chain and is making $15 an hour for that kind of work, you can't just say, okay, well, we're now going to pay them $50 an hour. That this other person who's, a top manager in the business maybe make. So we have to look at the broken systems. I think you're going to see a lot of focus on housing, economic recovery, I hope we're going to see some movement towards economic diversity, and I hope that we're going to see some priority on bills to fix broken systems in terms of why we're one of the worst states in the nation. If you want to attract new industry, you have to have a business-friendly environment.
Mm-hmm.
We have one of the worst business-friendly environments. So that's been this will change for 18 years. We've been fighting this for 18 years.
Yeah.
And yet each year there are so many bills that increase the cost of doing business. But it's just, you talk about on a national scale. It's just not where we need to be and not where other states are. And there are many examples of other ways that we can do it better. But we really need to focus now on this. The people were shocked at the amount of money Lahaina brought in. They just didn't realize how much money Lahaina got into the state coffers. And on a county level, what people want to do is get moving forward. They want to move forward with water. They want to move forward with infrastructure so we can move forward with housing. We need to focus on, really viable economic development projects that work. And we need to be working with industry. Right now we need to be working with our local businesses. We need to be working with our local developers. And we need to be insulating our community and the skills training here in Hawaii and doing the work here in Hawaii so that those jobs stay here and that people can be gainfully employed while we recover. They can get back to the work they love. If they don't love that work, they can find new ways to go, really get back to putting some amazing small business loan programs going. It's the time where we have there's a lot of priority. There's a lot of priorities, and I mean, even things that people don't generally think about, but of course I get to think about, invasive species. And people will say, "Well, what are you doing working on active deer?" Well, we're working on active deer because active deer now are a problem to the point that they cause devastation to businesses. They were at the airport. There are things that we have let go for so long that we just have to continue to address. But we have to really, I think in our state, we're really going to have to focus because, as you point out, there have been tremendous losses. And the other thing is that we need our leaders who are not familiar with business or, I mean, people have been, again, we're sort of blindsided by this insurance issue. Well, we know that this is going to happen. We saw it with other major disasters on the Big Island, right? You have huge insurance issue. So we're going to have to start tackling some of these big problems that we've been sort of one disaster away planning, and that is going to change.
Yeah.
I will tell you that. From the work done last year at the state legislature to what I expect to happen again this year at the state legislature, it was a wake-up call, a devastating wake-up call to the magnitude that people get it, and there's going to be a lot of work on that. And what we need to do is find a way that as we're doing a lot of this new work, we do it within our community. We work with the nonprofits, we work with businesses, and we don't need to keep bringing others in from the outside. We need to be taking care of our own and moving forward. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that translates. But we've got to stop bills that keep increasing the cost of doing business for business, so they have money to hire employees. And we need to pivot. We're going to have to diversify and pivot. And there's going to be, I think, a wave of new tools that are going to become available in terms of training for free. I think you're going to see a lot of workforce development programs to help and get people back into employment who are unemployed. Lot of amazing changes, but housing, I think, housing and economic efforts are going to be top of mind.
I think about how people love the business and how you have so many wonderful people come out for the arts and the sales and the things that happen on your event that happens on the 1st of November, around the 1st of November. And do those people ever, do you find that artists and other groups and people who are creating ever think about coming together? Is there a way to connect people who couldn't maybe go out on their own in business to get together with other people and they can join in a business effort and be a place where people go that's a central location for 3 or 4 artistic community people are the people that can do creative things that couldn't do it on their own?
Yeah, we have long had a Made in Maui trade group but it's sort of now morphed into the Made in Maui County Festival, and we support vendors in that way. It's beyond just the festival. The festival is a way to, celebrate our manufacturing businesses. And I'm going to redefine manufacturing as you just did in a minute. But it's to celebrate local manufacturers, our makers who are coming up with creative ideas and creating products from those. But we don't just, after the festival, we continue to promote ways to buy online and support local throughout the year. We also present them with opportunities throughout the year of ways to get involved in different things or training programs that we have going. So we're constantly working with our local makers. And by local makers, it's artisans, it's woodworkers, it's crafters, it's musicians, it's
1 minute, Pam.
of course. Oh gosh, this was done so quick. Anyway, it's a whole host of many different businesses that are taking ideas and creating products out of it, and we are here to help. And you can call the Maui Chamber of Commerce at 24. I can't even think of my own name. I can't even think of my own. 244-0081. The chamber's office 244-0081, or reach out to us at mauichamber.com. And we're here to help. We're here to help all businesses.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
It's good. It's great to talk to you, and I look forward to connecting with you really soon. And we just want to say blessings and aloha to everybody this holiday season. Have a wonderful New Year's, and we'll be back after that.